10:01, let's rock and roll. Welcome to the Hammerdown Podcast, where we put the pedal to the metal and talk trends, tech, and tunes. Today, my guest is Sherman Bausch, the co-founder and principal consultant at NextMileIoT. Sherman, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm up in the north Midwest, so it's about 0 degrees here, but staying warm inside and glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good you're staying warm because it's cold down here in Charlotte. So I'm glad to have you on. Sherman, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what NextMileIoT does as a firm? You're one of our partners here at LifeScale Analytics. So love to hear what you do and what the firm does.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on here. It's great to be here. And of course, love the work that you guys do at LifeScale. At NextMile, we value expertise in our allies and partners, and you guys exemplify that. So again, thank you. I've been in this business for, 25 to 27 years. I was thinking about it. So, my career starts at Y2K and ends at AI, or, currently ends at AI. In the middle, I've done a whole lot of everything. I've built large projects for enterprises, starting on the mainframe and moving into new technologies at the time, like Java and Microsoft. And I've managed small and large projects. I've managed interactive projects, and I've done work on both hardware and IoT. NextMile as a company really focuses on those key areas of cost down and getting IoT and connected product experience right. So we spend a lot of time with stakeholders on governance and making sure that programs run efficiently, on ideation and value creation, and understanding how a connected product could improve a core business. And then finally, deconflicting and helping stuff get out of the way so that the technology itself doesn't do more harm than the business running without it, which I think is what we're going to talk a lot about today. So
we are. That's a great segue, Sherman. And I'm glad you're staying warm because it is cold everywhere in the country. So bundle up, everybody. Hopefully this gets you through today. The industry trend today is digital transformation without disruption. And, this part of the, allure to my show is it's trends, tech, and tunes. So Sherman, and this is how it ties together here. Why does a successful business that is analog or first, wave of digital go through the pain of digital transformation?
Oh, this is a great question, and one we've been asking in the industry for a long, long time. For me, it boils down to something that one of our clients said to me once. He's been running his business. You could call it a manufacturing business. They do use a manufacturing process. He's been running his business for upwards of 30 years now, and he said the job that he does, his core business, hasn't fundamentally changed in 30 years. The jobs that they were asked to do 30 years ago, they're asked to do today. The difference is the tasks and the functions that they are asked to provide as a course of that job. So 30 years ago, they were provided details and specs and quality control and all these things. And jokingly, he says today stuff shows up on his doorstep and he's expected to deduce and understand everything. He's supposed to add additional services like quality control, custom reporting, all of these things. And so the solution for an analog business is either to scale up to a point of unprofitability in terms of people, or to figure out a way to digitize process, whether it's, digitize intake, digitize reporting, digitize monitoring, all those things. And then of course, on the back end of that, where LifeScale lives, in understanding the data that the business produces and making more informed decisions. So it is a chicken and egg thing, saying, can we digitize and get data, or do we need data to digitize? But at the end of the day, the value proposition is setting business owner using digital, leveraging new knowledge or new data to set business owners up to apply their expertise and judgment to improve their bottom line.
No, and that's awesome. And one of the points there too, Sherman, that you touch on is how do we take that historically valuable data and make it actionable in today's market, or leverage that to make those processes improve faster? And that's where we do come in here at LifeScale Analytics. So great call. Next question I have for you on this trend is, what are some of the keys to helping an analog business that's successful go through a digital transformation and not disrupt it?
So I think I'd like to look at that from our seat, Jay, from the provider seat, and say, how can we help people? And the reason why is because transformation is disruptive by its nature. The idea that your business is one thing and you're changing it to something else is going to be disruptive. And so how you minimize that disruption as a business or as a provider, I think, is probably the lens that we look through and say, as a business, the minute, no offense, the minute you or I walk through the door, we are disruptive. Because, you know, we're changing the status quo, we're impacting the status quo. So I think first order for everybody is to realize that by even discussing this type of improvement, or by discussing digital, you're creating a disruption, and you have to be sensitive to that. So how you handle that is by focusing early and focusing small, right? The industry for years has been struggling to say, you know, we need to discover, we need to spend months and months learning about your business before we can help you with your business. And the truth is that business owners, executives, CEOs, stakeholders, they know the problems that they have implicitly or explicitly. And so our job in transformation without disruption is to get alongside of them and understand how to extract that knowledge from them. So you guys come in at LifeScale and you ask questions about their data, and these clients know the data points that matter to them, and then you help them make more sense of it. You know, I think every day as a provider, we reach a point where we've done this 100 times or 500 times or however many times it is. But for our clients, it's unique every time. And so the context that we walk in, when you say, I'm here to help, I think the first tool that goes into play is this idea that finding out where they know their pains are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's spot on. You can go in and analyze 50 different processes within a business, and 47 of them are not a priority. So
yeah,
it's, how do we, go in and, take that tribal knowledge of what they have with the passion in their organization, and take it from, since we're talking analog to digital, how do we take it from a cassette tape and then build simultaneously the CD and then the full digital world where everybody just downloads? We want to go through that whole journey with them as a business owner. So that it's definitely something that's part of that trend of, yes, I'm glad you acknowledge that I'm disruptive when I walk in a room. It always makes it funny. But let's transition over to tech, Sherman. What is critical about the tech in order to achieve some level of digital transformation without disruption? Because my opinion's always been that technology is complementary. My background is healthcare, so a doctor or a nurse is still going to do their job, but the technology complements them to either see more patients or historical data. What do you see, what is critical to not disrupt?
A great question. And I'm aligned with you fully on this, that we, as people in the technology business, it's easy for us to think that we're the point, that the technology is the point. But like you said, the technology is a tool to enhance. And so how you disrupt, I think one challenge that providers have is oftentimes, now this is not a challenge for you guys because you work in a very generalized way, but one of the challenges that interactive or hardware providers will have is they have expertise in an area. So they'll walk in and say something like, oh, this is a .NET problem, or this is an AI problem, when the truth of the matter is you don't know what the problem is yet. So I think how we disrupt is by not starting from a technical opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the agnostic, we need some more conversation. It's not even about data, but having more conversation first to understand what the root of the problem is, to identify how to approach it. And, part of our conversations have been around people, process, technology. What do you see in the people, process, technology of aligning to the business? How does that go in with the flow of not disrupting?
That's a good one. So if we take them in order, people, really, you're bringing expertise to the table. And so that's valuable. They have expertise, you have expertise. And so sorting that out and saying, I need to learn enough about your business to apply my expertise. One of the ways this client I referenced to you does that is they train you on their process. They bring you in, they sit you down and they say, I want you to do the work that my employees do. And that knocks a lot of your preconceived notions out the door right away.
Right.
You sit down and you're like, wow, it's really noisy in here, so we can't use sound. My hands are full, so I can't use a two-handed typing interface. Like there's a lot of decisions that are made for you in context as just being one of their people. Process is where I think interactive companies and digital transformation companies are the most disruptive. And it's because in order to be efficient as a business, an interactive company has to do their thing a certain way. But that's not in the core business of your clients. And so figuring out how to make your process not their problem is, I think, the biggest way that you avoid disruption. So you have all these extra meetings to manage work, scrum meetings, backlog grooming meetings, whatever it is. Is that important for them to participate? Is it important for them to even know you do it? Does it benefit them to be a part of it? If your client's goal is to learn how to deliver digital, then maybe. But if your client's goal is to get the benefits of digital, then maybe not. And then finally, on the technology front, we touched on it a little bit. I think to be as non-disruptive as possible, what I would say is start from the technology that they either have or are familiar with, and then work adjacently. And so I know with LifeScale, you apply layers on top of the data that exists today to siphon it into new tools that work better for them. But you always start with where they're at. I know in interactive web development, tool development, sometimes that's hard because you say, well, they're on this old system and we want to build a new system.
Right.
But think long and hard about that, because the newer or the weirder something is to them, the more disruptive it's going to be. So.
Yeah, and part of what our research has been, and the last 3 years I spent in cybersecurity, same thing in the data and analytics space, is most people have tools, right? We don't come in and recommend a tool or a platform immediately because, like you talk about with familiarity, but what's the adoption level on that? So if it's only 20% and we need to get, if somebody would like to maximize their investment because they're trying to get return on investment, or holy smokes, we didn't know this was behind the scenes in this product, and now we could use that to move the business forward. That's where some of our consulting expertise comes in on the entire suite that they own and leveraging that.
Absolutely. And your agnosticism around the platforms, I think, is valuable as well. So you come in with things that maybe your team likes. I know people in your company that like certain tools over other tools, but I've never met someone who hasn't said, yeah, let's work with that. That's great. So that idea that you can fit into the context of the client becomes very important. They're a Power BI company. You say, okay, they're a Tableau company. You say, okay, whatever it is, you help them to enhance the thing they have rather than rip it out and put something new in, because that's where your expertise lies.
Right. And a lot of times, Sherman, we will come across, that's a great point, that we will come across where the volume and velocity of different stakeholders that need different reports, the resources just can't build out and automate or understand that, because there was like you talked about originally, there's 3 people asking for one report once a month or once a quarter. Now there's 300 people that want an automated daily report of something different, whether it's finance or manufacturing or the CEO, sales, whatever different business unit in there. Operations wants to know what the fill rate was. There's all these different things that somebody might not know how to take the exact same data and package it back to them. So that's a great point. Last one on how do we leverage tech? What are some mistakes to avoid, Sherman? Because that's a typical question we've been getting is, all right, you've done all these great, awesome engagements. What's a mistake that everybody else has made?
Okay, this is going to be a bit esoteric. Here's the mistake that everybody makes. They don't declare what done looks like. And they don't make it so that when they're done, the business can run. So especially if the problems are big, right? If the transformation is large, and even if the client's asking for a massive transformation, I think one of the mistakes we make is to agree to that and say, okay, we'll do an 18 months translation or 18 months transition with you. Well, I mean, a lot can happen in 18 months. So I think one of the mistakes we've seen, and one of the ways that NextMile really helps clients avoid this particular pitfall, is to really structure out and phase out work to say at every milestone. First, milestones are going to be short enough that there's value in weeks rather than months. And then the second thing we say is we're going to deliver results and we're going to deliver insight. So we're going to deliver something that improves the business, and we're going to deliver some new learning that's going to help you make the next decision. And then finally, at each point, you have to be ready, or we have to be ready to say, and if you don't want to go any further, then this was valuable in and of itself. And so all of that work, whatever the work is, should ladder up to that North Star of transformation, that, that 18-month one that we're talking about. But maybe it's 6 3-month goals, or maybe it's 18 1-month goals. I don't know. It depends on the client's appetite for interaction. But I think the big mistake is not declaring done.
Right. And I'll tell you an interesting fact about me, Sherman. My favorite 4-letter word in the English language is actually done. And, and similar to how your firm does things, we do structure things to where we have an endpoint and some different offshoots on how we can go, depending on the success of phase 1 or phase 2, small, sometimes it's a large engagement feeding off all that stuff. Somebody that wants to know, they've gone through multiple mergers, acquisitions, divestitures. They want to know where the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
That kind of engagement with us is like, it's 12 weeks to go find everything and then come up with a plan of what good looks like for tomorrow. And then the engagements beyond that, we do not want to live somewhere forever. So,
yeah. Well, and more importantly, transformation creates new learning and new opportunities. So the minute you take a business and tell them something they didn't know before, not only is that knowledge new, but it shines the business in a whole new light. And so, we might have a business that says, I don't understand the staff cost of a thing. And all of a sudden data tells them the staff cost of a thing. Now they need time to ingest it, and they need time to process it, and they need time to apply it, learn from it, and then do something with it. And they might say, well, I do want to take the next step with you, but let me spend some time with this for a minute, because this is going to change how we HR. This is going to change how we, all these things that are not related to the original ask maybe might change because of the great new information that they got. So transformation should be intentional, and it should take a break.
Yeah, and that's a great point on that too, Sherman. Going back to your original comment of it takes a long time to absorb that and make that transition, because it is disruptive to go back to what the core values of the business are. It's not like there's a quantum leap of saying we're going from analog. I always think of the old record rooms in a hospital where it was paper, and then they got digitally imprinted and scanned in so that it was for retention purposes. And then now everything is in a hybrid cloud mode in some sort of EMR and public cloud, private cloud, and on-prem. It doesn't just happen overnight. So it's that okay, we're going to go and get rid of the record rooms. That's how my brain thinks that all this stuff lays out. But how does somebody get a hold of you, Sherman? Is it best to hit you on email? I can put it in the comments. Is it you a LinkedIn junkie like I am? Twitter?
Twitter's the only one I don't use. LinkedIn is great if you want to find me there. I'd love a connection in the comments. NextMileIoT.com is up and running. We've got a blog where we share a lot of our insights, unfiltered insights on what we think of the business and how to do this type of transformation. Some great case studies there. Some work we've done together. I don't know if we can talk about it. And then, of course, my email address. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Sounds good. And listen, everybody knows how to get a hold of me. I'm a pretty public face now. Jay Mervis at lifescaleanalytics.com. So let's do this. Let's transition, Sherman, over to tunes. It's like corporate Christmas for me. Every time I have a guest, I either have somebody that's like completely aligned with me or somebody that gives me a challenge. You're in the bucket of people that gave me a challenge. You chose, since you're the guest, you chose Gregory Alan Isakov. And
I did.
Give us a little background on this. You maybe do some homework. I listen to a bunch of his songs because we got to align the tunes to the text. So why don't you tell me why you like them?
Yeah, well, first of all, confession, I've been listening to music, going to concerts since I was a teenager. It's something I've loved to do. I've seen a lot of great concerts. Some of the holies like Van Morrison, the Eagles. I love all types of music. I've done a lot of that. I'd only started listening to Greg Isakov last summer, frankly. Wasn't going to go to his show in town. Bought a ticket, bought a VIP ticket up on the rail, and walked in and heard the best concert I've ever heard in my life. Hands down, better than anyone else I've ever heard for any number of reasons. But I was thinking about how does it relate to transformation and technology and
hang on,
yeah,
Sherman.
no, I understand that. But what I'm going to say
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
simplicity is one of the hardest things to achieve. And Greg Isakov's music is simple, but when you get underneath it, it's deeply complicated.
Mm.
So an example of that would be a guy like Gordon Lightfoot,
Mhm.
obviously well-known balladeer. Gordon Lightfoot's music has really a couple of things going on. One is there's him sitting there strumming his guitar, but for most of his career, he had two other guitar players, Terry Clemens and Red Shaw, underneath him, playing this beautiful melody guitar tucked away underneath. And so Gordon Lightfoot's music is what it is, not just because of the great melodies and the great harmonies and that sort of thing. It's because of those two guys. And Greg Isakov was the first musician I've heard in years who layers in that great piano and slide guitar and banjo and mandolin, just all these really subtle textures. And when you first listen to it, it sounds very simple. And when you put the headphones on, like I like to listen with studio headphones. Put the studio headphones on, it becomes amazing. So that's why
that's how I listen to it. I'm going to give a couple facts and then we'll go through the tunes. So
Great.
He's got eight studio albums. One was recorded with the Colorado Symphony Orchestra, which I found very interesting. Another random fact is one of the songs, Big Black Card 2012, ended up being on a McDonald's commercial. So
that I did not know.
Wild. And so I listened to pretty much all of his roster of hits. So we'll go this fantasy football style. Sherman, you can go first. Take one of the tunes. How does it tie back in?
All right. All Shades of Blue. It is on his Weatherman album, and it ties in not necessarily for the song, though the song does talk about the trudge of trying to get to a goal. But here's how it ties in. When I heard him play, they played this song. I'll probably be one of my picks later. They played a song. They walked off the stage. They got encored back on. You know how all bands do.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than get encored back on and go back to their instruments, they all gathered around one microphone and did a traditional sort of bluegrass encore, which was they leaned in and sang and leaned back out. You could kind of hear it, but kind of not. So everybody had to sit really quietly. And so for me, All Shades of Blue is about meeting the moment and understanding that you're there for a reason. And that song for me will always be in that encore. So they did it differently to make it special, to make it unique for that moment. And so that's why it fits into this particular question.
Awesome. I didn't have that on my list, but it's not my band, but I did listen to everything and I've got about 7 songs. So I'm going to take 2. Hopefully I don't take one of yours, Sherman.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to back. I've got Chemicals. Okay. Yep. So the song, it's an excellent song. The reason I chose this as part of digital transformation without disruption is if you're in a chemistry lab or you're dealing with your pool, you have to be very careful on what you mix and don't mix so that everything's good. So that's why I took Chemicals.
Yep.
And then I took Caves because
that was one of mine.
Sorry, I hate when I ruin it. I hate when I ruin it for the guests, but Caves, it was the same time every time. And I think about when we do consulting work or cybersecurity, anything within technology, it's prescriptive on what we do. And I'm sorry for taking your tune,
no, that's
but that's me doing some homework, Sherman. I mean, like everybody thinks I just show up on the podcast. I don't like you. I've got a long history in tech, so I don't have to do a lot of homework. But this one, I did a lot of homework. I told you I had 7 songs, but you can close out with the last one. I'll give you 2. I'll give you a bonus one after you take your last one, Sherman, if you got a listener.
All right. So I want to start with my bonus one. My bonus one is just worth listening to. It talks about internal turmoil and how we progress as people. And it's important to notice as practitioners that we move along and we become better and different. I couldn't have done the consulting that I'm doing today without being a network admin, without working in hardware, without working in IoT. And I know your background as well. Like our backgrounds make us valuable to our customers. Ironically, the title of that song is Liars. And it is on the Symphony Orchestra album. And it's a beautiful song. It actually starts with a bar fight, which is pretty funny, which, may be in some people's past. But I will close with a ballad, which has appeared on my top 10. I never do a favorite song of all time. I always do a top 10 because I love music. The ballad is 3 a.m.
Mm,
It's on one of his older albums, and it is, I think it relates best for me because it talks about personal drive
mhm.
to be better at the thing that I'm doing and the lengths that I will go to do it. And so the joke, of course, is it's 3 a.m. again, just like it always seems to be, is the lyric. And one of the questions we ask our clients, one of the questions I know you guys ask your client is, what's keeping you up at night? So I think 3 a.m. is a great way to close this out and talk about how transformation cannot be as disruptive. So that's my
So
pick.
I had that on my list too, Sherman. So that's good that I actually did my homework and we're aligned. So I really appreciate you being on. Stay warm. We're gonna get some good viewership. I'm looking forward to going on our next engagement call together, and talking to some clients about doing digital transformation without disruption. I can't believe I got to edit myself on this one, but listen, thanks for tuning in to the Hammerdown podcast. Like it, share it, tell your mom, tell your friends. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Sherman.
Thanks for having me. Take care.